So, good morning and warm welcome to everyone. So, on behalf of University of Agriculture Sciences, Bangalore, and the Center of Excellence on Watershed Management, I am delighted to host today's webinar under the theme Digital Agriculture. So, and the topic is recent advances in remote sensing of terrestrial carbon cycle. So we are privileged to have esteemed dignitaries, faculty members, colleagues, and participants from various domains with us today. So to facilitate an uninterrupted session, please mute your microphones. The questions can be shared in chat box, and we will facilitate the Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So let us begin the webinar. I now invite our special officer, Center of Excellence on Watershed Management, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Dr. Virupaksha. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Center of Excellence on Watershed Management, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you for this webinar under the series Digital Agriculture. And as you are already aware, this is the 9th webinar in series organized by the Center of Excellence on Watershed Management. We are deeply honored to have us the distinguished scientist and the main speaker of today's webinar, Dr. Vinay Kumar Dadhwal, Indira Gandhi Chair Professor, Environmental Sciences of Natural Sciences of Engineering, NIAS, Bangalore. Dr. Dadhwal will be sharing his expertise on today's webinar with the topic as the recent advances in remote sensing of terrestrial carbon cycle. His vast knowledge and contributions in the field will certainly inspire and enrich us. Sir, on behalf of the University of Agriculture Sciences and on behalf of Center of Excellence Watershed Management and Watershed Development Department, I wholeheartedly welcome you, sir, on this occasion. And we are to deliver the talk in today's webinar. So I request Dr. Nagar, sir, welcome him by giving the okay. Thank you very much, sir. I would also like to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, who will always be a source of pillar and inspiration for such kind of activity at the campus. And because of his busy schedule, he is occupied with other activity, but he is very well aware that this particular program is happening. On behalf of all of you, let me thank him also for giving a proper direction and also suggestion all along in this particular program. So let me also welcome our Commissioner, Watershed Development Department, Dr. Uday Pratap Singh, who is also always giving us a lot of suggestion and gives us motivation in this particular webinar series, because most of the time the major activities at Center of Excellence which is happening is always encouraged by Watershed Development Department. I thank profusely our Commissioner Watershed Development Department in this regard on behalf of Center of Excellence, Watershed Management, and also from the University of Agricultural Sciences. A warm welcome to all our faculty members from Department of Soil Science, Department of Agronomy, and the researchers representing senior research fellows, research associates who are all physically present here, as well as those who are online for this particular webinar series. So let me welcome all of you for this fruitful webinar to be delivered by Dr. Dadhwal, sir. Finally, let me acknowledge the dedicated team behind organizing such kind of webinar series from our center. Let me welcome all of them also in this particular program. With that, let us begin this insightful journey together. And constant webinar being organized by us is most likely being attended more than 350 participants online. So we would like to see similar response from those who are really interested in this particular webinar series. So let me welcome all those who are participating in online mode. And as Dr. Virupaksha said, question and answer session will be there at the later part of the webinar. And thank you, each one of you. And let me invite Virupaksha once again to proceed further for the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, to help us understand the vision and initiatives of the Center of Excellence on Watershed Management, I now request Dr. Nagaraja N to speak about Center of Excellence on Watershed Management. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Distinguished Speaker of the Day, eminent teachers who are present here, and also audience who are in front of the laptops or the computers. Sir, the Center of Excellence on Watershed Management was established as part of the REWARD program. REWARD is a rejuvenating watersheds for agricultural resilience through innovative development. This is a World Bank funded project and implemented by the Watershed Development Department in Karnataka. One of the features of REWARD program is implementing the most advanced scientific approaches in planning as well as implementing and monitoring the watershed development activities. The location, the site-specific problems are captured through land resource inventory as well as hydrological assessments, and accordingly, the treatments are selected and it is automated, the digital support system. And this is for the first time implemented in India, and of course, maybe through not seen in other parts of the world also. It is a novel thing that has been experimented in Karnataka, and it is likely to be expanded to all other parts of this country as part of watershed development component of PMKSY3 in the years to come. So whatever the new approaches that are being followed are going to be replicated in other parts. Sir, this Center of Excellence was established mainly to strengthen the skills of the scientists, the people who are implementing the watershed development initiative. The center has been given the task of conducting trainings and capacity building activities on the scientific approaches that are developed and used in the REWARD program. Number second is validating the approaches that are followed in the REWARD program. There could be some modifications that are required. That is the second part. And refining the decision support systems that are being followed. And most importantly, the knowledge exchange activities. We have to organize the knowledge exchange activities. As part of knowledge exchange activities, we have conducted series of webinars as well as the exposure visits. And of course, exposure visits have to take place. And also we have conducted national and national conference, and international conference is likely to happen. This is as part of knowledge exchange activities. So these are the main activities of the Center of Excellence, the strengthening the capacities of the people who are implementing watershed development activities in the entire country. And also we have trained so far about 1,000 professionals, including the scientists of various universities and the centers. This is about the Center of Excellence, and this is supported by the World Bank, and we have funding support from the Watershed Development Department. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving the information about Center of Excellence. And now it is my pleasure to call upon Dr. G.S. Dasu to introduce our distinguished speaker of today's webinar.
Good morning. It gives me immense pleasure and privilege to introduce Professor Vinay Kumar Dadhwal, who is currently Indira Gandhi Chair Professor of Environmental Sciences in the National Institute of Advanced Sciences in the IISc campus in Bangalore. He is born and brought up in Delhi. In fact, he has his early education in Delhi and obtained a BSc degree from the famous Hansraj College in Botany. And then he joined MSc and he did PhD both from IIRA in the area of plant physiology. Soon after obtaining his PhD, he joined what is called Space Application Center in Ahmedabad. There he was there for a long time, and he was, in fact, before he left there, he was head of the crop inventory and modeling division, Space Application Center. And then he moved on to Dehradun as Dean of Indian Institute of Remote Sensing. And there he was there until 2010. And after that, he moved over to Hyderabad as the director of National Remote Sensing Center. Prior to that, he was associate director for a year. And then he rose from, eminence. From there, actually, he became the director of National Remote Sensing. After the NRSC directorship, he became director of the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology in Thiruvananthapuram until 2021. Soon after, he assumed this present position. This is actually National Indira Gandhi Chair Professor. Actually, his biodata is something very exhaustive and very inspiring for youngsters. I would make my best effort to read out as much as possible. I think if I were to look, if you were to look to his research, he's widely recognized Earth observation scientist known for his work on agriculture, land surface processes, hydrology, earth sciences, including biogeochemical cycle of carbon in India, land transformation and deforestation and disaster management. His outstanding research contributions are in developing Earth observation techniques for crop forecasting from village to national scale, assessment of terrestrial carbon cycle of India, forest above ground biomass mapping, vegetation productivity and land surface processes, establishing observation infrastructure for long-term carbon monitoring and land transformation studies at decade to century scale. With about 325 published publications to his credit and with 13,750 citations as of January 2025, he is featured among the Stanford list of top 2% scientists in the world. In addition, he has extensive experience in leading research programs, scientific management and leadership, and international space cooperation and advising space industry. Currently, he chairs the expert group of National Geophysical Program of DST-GOI, and he is also Research Advisory Committee Chairman of our MBSS and LLP NAPCO. And he has been a member and chairman of a number of committees, to mention a few. He has been the chair of Subcommittee on Science and Technology of UN Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space at Vienna in 2016 and was leader member of the Indian delegation to UN CoEWM during 2012-15. He has extensive international space cooperation experience with US, European Space Agency, Japan, and China. He was president of Technical Committee 8 of International Society of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing between 2012 and 16. He was president of Indian Society of Remote Sensing between 2012 and 14. President of Indian National Cartography Association in 2013. He was the editor of the famous Journal of Indian Society of Remote Sensing for a long time, almost 2010 to 2023, and he is on the board of directors of Antrix Corporation 2013 to 16 and Drisha 2024 to 27. I may have left some of them, sir. You may excuse me. And he has got a lot of awards and recognition. He is a fellow of number of academies, including International Academy of Astronautics, Paris, National Academy of Physical Sciences, Indian Meteorological Society, Indian Society of Remote Sensing, Agrometeorological Association of India, and Astronautical Society of India. I think it is consistent. Even soon after his PhD, he got Young Scientist Award in 1986 by the Indian Science Congress Association and Young Scientist Medal in 1989 by National Science Academy, Indian National Remote Sensing Award in 1999, Hari-Om Dr. Vikram Sarabhai Award in 1999, ISRO ASI Awards for Space Application 2005, ISRO Merit Award 2007, Bhaskara Award 2012, Satish Dhawan Award 2013, Outstanding Achievement Award 2016, and Lifetime Achievement Award in 2023. I think with this impressive biodata, we are really thrilled to have you, sir, amidst us, and thank you for giving an opportunity to introduce such a distinguished person.
Thank you very much, sir. With great anticipation, we now move to the highlight of today's event, our webinar speaker. I warmly welcome our speaker, Dr. Vinay Kumar Dadhwal, to deliver his talk on recent advances in remote sensing of terrestrial carbon. Over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Professor Prakash. Thank you, Professor Nagaraja. Thank you, Professor Dasog, for very, very kind introduction. I should have sent a 3-line my data only. And thank you, Dr. Virupaksha, for assembling it all together. So when I got just a couple of days ago request to deliver a talk, I thought that I would cover what currently we are doing. So after my superannuation, I had the choice of picking only one subject. And the one subject which I picked was the carbon cycle, which has a small history. In 1980, there was the Carbon Dioxide Villiers Conference, which actually identified that CO2 would really be a challenge. That happened in 1980. And among the Indian participants were Dr. M.S. Swaminathan and Professor S.K. Sinha. When Professor Sinha returned and we were PhD student, so he, while having tea, he said, no, when you become research scientist, we should really seriously look at the Indian carbon cycle, because foreigners will go on saying many projections and there should be more Indian data. But there was not an opportunity to do. But later on, by late 90s, I started doing it. Then we used ISRO funds to do what I will describe now. After superannuating, because you can work with data, that's why I work on carbon cycle. But now I realize I should have used crop and watershed as a topic. But I will be willing to, very happy to answer some work on use of remote sensing for crop simulation model, use of remote sensing for Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. I used to chair the expert group which identified the technologies to be adopted in India, and a couple of other remote sensing applications. So with this small apology, I want to there will be slight bias about forestry, because trees have more carbon. There should be, by that yardstick, there should be even stronger bias on soil, because soils have double the carbon than the trees. But I will describe some of the activities. Here, if I stand. Yes. So what basically I wish to do is I will cover one, carbon and carbon cycle, very small, and just very small introduction to global carbon cycle. But then use of remote sensing for carbon pools and fluxes is what we will do. And then come to Indian estimates and what are the advances in remote sensing, what recently has been happening. In fact, the fun point is all carbon which is there, it all originated in the first Big Bang, because helium gave rise to beryllium, and from beryllium the carbon came. So all carbon what we have in our body, eat, food, has been recycled thousands and millions of times, and we don't know what path it took, right? So this is a fun fact, but the whole point is carbon because of its tetrahedral and the nature, it can form various types of long chains, from carbohydrates to lignin to fats. And more importantly, those bonds, by vibration, they absorb the infrared, which then is actually, once it is emitted, then it creates a greenhouse, right? So this is the challenge of the carbon and the special ocean floor, rocks, and other lithosphere. But what we normally deal with is the short life carbon cycle, where 90% actually plus is in ocean. And then in land also, very large is present in the fossil fuel reserve. The atmosphere versus land, is roughly the same if you remove the soil. But the moment you take soil, it is about 3 times the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. That's why its half-life is supposed to be sort of 7 years or so. Now, this is a summary of the global balance. I think once the slide comes, right. So we realize the relative sizes of the pool. The second thing is transfer between the pools. The biggest process from atmosphere to land is the photosynthesis, but the respiration and things flow out. What you see in the red line is the fossil fuel which are burned, right? 8.3 gigaton. And more importantly, now the land comes as a sink, but land has been a source in the history. So if we look at the global the temporal change, and as well as the recent summary, what it means is the total sources, you can divide by 3.6, 34.4 gigatons of CO2 comes from energy, 14 from land use, including the wood, etc. use. And where it goes, roughly half of it remains in the atmosphere, 30% on land, and 23% goes in the ocean as a bicarbonate, which has its own consequences. But this, we are still not able to balance carbon. You can see 0.4% is shown the balance. Now, if we follow since 1850, the total trajectory, the fossil carbon is this gray, which has been rising, right?
Pointer is not visible. Digital screens. Okay, sir.
Then if you take the same ocean, land and atmosphere, so the atmosphere fraction is increasing. There are many years when there is an imbalance. It means there are uncertainties in the computation. So this study is by the Global Carbon Project, where more than 100 scientists and multiple methods are all combined. So this you can keep in mind. There has been update every year they give, but the main picture still remains the same. Now, what here we want to switch the gear to remote sensing. Very happy to learn that you are already aware of the remote sensing. It's a multidisciplinary field. You are observing land sometimes from 1,000 kilometers, right? And you have two important things. One is that you have a sensor, and then you have a choice of electromagnetic radiation, which you will come in a moment. And from that radiation and the interaction, you can derive vegetation, soil, and atmosphere parameters. More importantly, this information you can link with the ground information in a geographic information system. So finally, the entire science rationale is satellite, sensor, digital communication, scientific model, computer, and field information ground truth that allows you to solve the problem. Now, what basically every sensor does is it measures a response. In this case, either it is a backscatter or a radiance, and if you are using LiDAR, it is the regime. Now, how to convert this engineering parameter into a plant, soil, or atmosphere parameters? You have two types of options. You can have empirical regression, or you can have a model inversion with either a direct model or forward model. This is just to inform. As we will discuss, sometimes we will be doing empirical model, sometimes we will be using model. But now the modern machine learning allows us to do data analytics. I'll explain which are the cases where we have used the data analytics. The second important point to remember, we talked of electromagnetic radiation and interaction with the Earth. Now, various parts of the spectrum allow different type of information. If you are in visible and near infrared, you actually get the green canopy, and for NIR, you get if there are intercellular spaces in a leaf, so the air-water interface allows the high NIR. If you have very narrow wavelength, which is about 0.5 nanometer, you can see the return and in the Fraunhofer line, because that radiation should actually be totally absorbed. But if you are getting in the sun that very narrow beam, it is due to solar induced fluorescence. The importance of solar induced inflorescence is when the light is absorbed by plant, then chlorophyll 1, 2, 1, and then the photochemical reaction, energy flows. What the plant is not able to use, in a delayed response, it is sent back as fluorescence. So very narrow, 1 to 3%, but satellites are able to pick and then compute the efficiency of photosynthesis, right? When you are in the thermal band, IR thermal, you measure the temperature. We all can very simply state the fact that when the stomata are open and evapotranspiration happens, leaves are cool. The moment stomata close due to lack of water, then the leaf temperatures are higher. What you can measure is the Tc minus Ta, canopy temperature and air temperature. That is the measure of evapotranspiration as well as drought, right? Then the moment you come to the canopy temperature and evapotranspiration, the moment you come to radar, so the radar basically is a signal sent to the surface and you see the return. Now radar basically reacts with three things: surface roughness, water, and the soil's moisture, basically dielectric. The water has a dielectric of 80, the otherwise other material is less than 1. So more water means the radar signature changes, right? And the last one we come to is the passive microwave. This is the emission. Anybody or any object which is above 2.3 Kelvin will actually emit a microwave. So you need very sensitive sensor. So here what finally comes is this passive microwave. Because of the water droplets in the leaf, you get an optical depth BOD. So from that BOD, you can do the analysis of leaf area, biomass, and many things, and soil moisture. The challenge is because the signal of emission is so small, to collect with good signal to noise ratio, you need a very broad spatial resolution of the order of kilometers. So you can't use it at field scale. These two you can use at leaf and canopy scale. This you can only use at a very, very big landscape scale. Now let us understand the scientific rationale. What we understood was the response. Now, as we discussed, the most important part is the photosynthesis from atmosphere. The plants absorb carbon dioxide, create carbohydrates, and then we get food, we get biomass, we burn it, we have the residue burning. Many things come from there, right? But the first part is, so how to measure photosynthesis? So basically, as I explained, if you have SIF, you can measure the energy transfer. Once you are in red and NI, this is the 690 absorption, sorry, right? So this is happening at each subcellular space. Now there are two things which are happening. If you see the leaf space, there is an incident photosynthetic active radiation. Because of this chlorophyll, it gets absorbed. So you can actually get the absorbed photosynthetic active radiation. You measure reflectance or you measure the solar induced photosynthesis. The apart, the photosynthetically active radiation with a light use efficiency, you actually transfer the hydrogen across the chloroplast, which then merges with CP2 to lose. So now we understand we are actually doing the light part of through remote sensing, and this carbon reaction, because Rubisco can vary with nitrogen content, it can vary with the canopy distribution, and it can vary with phenology and fertilizer application, right? Including diseases also. So that part is done also by remote sensing by classification. This is the remote sensing by energy transfer. Now the other part is when you come from a leaf to a canopy, so grass, tree, etc., three things happen. How much fraction you have for the leaf area index, what is the amount of soil moisture, and the vapor pressure deficit. These three can also be done by satellite. So the satellites allow us to monitor carbon fluxes from small to, let's say, tens of meter to kilometer scale. And since there is only one sensor, you do not have to calibrate, because if you have, let us say, soil sensor or any other sensor, then there will be intercalibration issue. Globally, you can use the same sensor, right? So we have, right. So okay, so this is the summary. Satellite data allows us to map areas occupied by various ecosystems, land transformation, even forest and plantation. Within the forest, ground density as class, crops, type of crop, date of sowing, right? The biomass, it will also allow us to do the fire, right? Then for the fluxes, we have the LAI and fraction absorbed part, which allows us to GPP, NPP, NEP. I'll also show an example of database modeling for waterfall, right? For soil, you are all familiar. You can do landscape and the landform mapping with satellite in the soil mapping. But some of the recent work for digital soil mapping, what we have done, I just described. All this doesn't solve the carbon cycle. For carbon cycle, you must do integration models with remote sensing input. Some examples, one or two, I tried to show. Now, why this is important, why India should do it. As a signatory to UN framework for climate change, right? UN FFFC, we are supposed to report our carbon. In that, I just come to it. The methodology from 1996 to 2019 has changed by increasing in agriculture, forest, and the other type of transformation. So carbon dioxide, methane, N2O, all we have to report, right? How do you report? There are three methods, which is called tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 method is they have given a coefficient. A country which doesn't have anything, they can simply multiply by their area with the coefficient given by IISc, right? The tier 2 method is country makes its own measurements and then multiplies by the area. So currently India does tier 2. But what is tier 3? Tier 3 is you spatially disaggregate every parameter, every process, and model it and give the cumulative model out. Now, the US, Canada, and European Commission, they do tier 3. Australia also is partly moved into tier 3. Most of the countries do tier 2, and half the nations of 196 do tier 1 only. So, what work we have been doing is a capacity building on learning on transition to tier 3. These are the cover pages of the India's reports. So basically here it is for carbon dioxide, methane, and N2O, for forest, crop, grassland, and settlement. So the method used is tier 2. Emission factor is country specific, and we are not doing a couple of things on N2O, right? So this is a summary of what India reports to UN FFFC, right? So what we want to do is we want to move a step ahead and develop pathway to moving towards the tier 3 capability for entire nation, right? So let us say in a summary, what they have been telling, agriculture, right, has emits, this is in the teragram. Teragram is 10 raised to the power 12, right, million ton. Is 6 per million, and ton is 2 grams. So they are the government of India or Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change says this is roughly 400 plus some odd number as the emission due to agriculture. Agriculture emissions happen due to use of fuel, due to use of fertilizer, due to manure management, right? So entire thing is the agriculture emission. So land use land cover change, they say, very rapidly ramping up from, let us say, 250 for 2010, while in 10 years, the uptake has doubled. So 485 teragram of carbon per year is the uptake due to land use change and forests. Now, others emission without land use land cover, with land use land cover. These are all Government of India reports submitted to UNFFC. Now the question is, you say carbon uptake per year has doubled and it has been happening. Can you really locate where and how much, and then show by independent techniques? So there are two ways of technique. You start from top and come below, or you start from below and go up, right? So top down and bottom up approach. The bottom up approaches try to measure, like you have many experiments which say long-term fertilizer experiment, that if you have this much FIM, this much this is the carbon increase in the soil, right? You many papers, hundreds of papers are there, but roughly we do not know in a map of India what fraction of farmer for how many years have actually been applying that much FIA. We actually are biomass efficient nation, right? And there are other challenges also, but we have done many things. We have brought crops to desert, Indira Gandhi Nehar Pariyojana, so which has increased. We have also done the remediation for saline soils, where again the agriculture is done. There has been increase, and through your watershed program also you do. So the challenge which I want to pose to you, and when I leave again I will repeat, can you really compute how much carbon gain has been there due to your intervention? Okay, so now we will diverge. So we have been trying to map India level, we means NRSC. So this is not my work, this is our group work. I was at NRSC, fine, but here what is important is the FSI also gives you every 2 year a map. They give statistics, they do not release map, you can purchase map. But then if you look at the data, how do you generate primary data? By satellite. But what do you do before 1980? There were topographic maps. Survey of India used to go and really map. Right? And what do you do before 1930s, 1920s? There used to be Gazetteer of India and land settlement. So what we have tried to do is merge three technologies: remote sensing technology, topographic mapping, and the let us say administrative records in a GIS framework to create a unified understanding of how India's land has been transforming. These maps are all available over nrsc.gov, right? And at 5 kilometer grid, you can download them also. We also want to support open science. The second one is, as the area decreases, the carbon will decrease. But we do not have the carbon density change, right? Forest area decreases, but the amount of carbon stored per hectare of forest has not remained the same. That is what now later on is the work what we have been trying to do. The third important point is we saw as a net or as a gross, we are accumulating carbon. But if you really look at the you are remote sensing people, yeah? You make a confusion matrix, right? Like confusion matrix, you can also make for two images transition matrix. What is there in image 1 and what is there in image 2? What is in the diagonal is the one which has remained, and what is off the diagonal, depending on plus or minus, is the transition. So since FSI is not releasing the spatial map, we created a methodology for looking at the transition matrix of the FSI, and for 20 years, we found out that we have almost like 200 to 250,000 hectares of tree removal. Now, this is a very sensitive issue. What is a deforestation? Deforestation is a conversion of a forest land to some other land use, right? Cutting a tree and allowing copies to grow, cutting a tree or removing shrub to plant, or having a silviculture harvest actually is not a deforestation because the land use remains forest only. It will accumulate, but it has implication on carbon balance. So generally, most of the newspaper and other people will say India lost 600 lakh hectare of forest in 10 years. You get many funny numbers, but the advantage is we can really spatially plot, and in each grid, I will show you what we did in Tripura. That not only the forest when it was cut or it was a shifting land, and then you plant rubber, how you can get age class and number, right? So we also then looked at 1 kilometer for the entire nation. What is the tree loss class less than, now if you have 1 kilometer, you are 100 hectare. So 1 hectare means 1%. So less than 1% tree loss happens in 332,000 grid, and the tree loss of 50 to 100 hectare only 4,000 grids. Now, globally, China and India are actually through land management increasing the carbon stock. It's a proven scientific fact. So then what we looked at, we also tried to create entire country 1 kilometer, it means 100 hectare, where the new plantations are. Roughly, you can see the number, right? And also see the spatial location. So it's good that Karnataka has done very well here. In fact, a lot of orchards have also come up. West Bengal is there, this part of Madhya Pradesh to roughly see. So what we want to do is that not move away from the table and the next change to really spatial mapping of tree dynamics through and what type of tree and what carbon density I will now come to. So now we this was published last year, 2024. Okay. So most of the work what I am explaining is published by my colleagues. So this is looking at the overall. So there have been losses and gains. So it is not that the only loss happens, where the gains and how much area, how many grid, that is equivalent to how much hectare. That also you can use by remote sensing. So now, as I was trying to tell you, that the carbon has to be measured over century scale, decade to century. 1 year change, 2 year change, 5 year change. So we tried to collect the land allotted by from 1870 or 1876 onward, vis-a-vis the actual tea plantation, then the topographic map, then the remote sensing, and why Jalpaiguri? Because North Bengal, Darjeeling and Jalpaiguri were the first two districts where the large scale salt tree removal and tea plantation took place. We are now in the process of expanding it. So roughly you can see there has recently been some grids loss also. In fact, 11% of the landscape there is tea. So obviously it would have been the forest, right? Because generally it grows in that sort of way. So now the challenge here is like this. You have managed forest, intensively managed forest which you can cut. Then you have managed which are lost, which are due to actual the FCA Act and diversion of land for non-agriculture. So these is generally a type of a schema that what are the 5 categories and how you can do. The intensively managed and non-managed you can do by bookkeeping model. And the other one you actually would require dynamic global registration. So we have started now working on DGBL, but bookkeeping model, I'll explain what really we have done. As part of National Carbon Project, with 75 universities, we collected 1,800 points actual biomass. And with satellite data, and this is like machine learning, we had almost 70 parameters, multiple remote sensing to predict the biomass, above ground biomass density at various points. R square is of the order of 70%. Right? So RMSC will be 25 to 50%. For low biomass, RMSC is original. For about 70 tons per hectare and above, it will be. Right? So now we look at how to improve. Now, the biggest challenge is if you want to say that you have this much carbon, and then you want how accurately are you measuring? All over the world, the standard method is you measure depth and you measure tree height and you develop a log equation called the allometric equation. Sometimes height enter, height doesn't enter, and what you get is a volume. The volume has to be converted into mass by using the specific gravity. Unfortunately, specific gravity is by age and by environment and species. So you can have hardwickia on one side and you can have poplar on the other side. So you should then in the forest know the species and the resource. So now what we now have a new technique which is called proximal remote sensing. This is a terrestrial laser scanner. Incidentally, all of you who are the Apple phone owners here, there is a TLS of 15-meter range in your device. You can, if you want to print from your Apple. So what was 50-60 lakh? So what you do is you scan, you send very cohesive laser beam, get the return, and from the return create a point cloud. Then that point cloud you do segmentation and then shed off the leaf by various algorithms. That creates a solid trunk. Then from the trunk you can actually get the work. In the previous slide, actually, we were measuring mangroves because mangroves are very difficult to work. They are in mud, and we also, you are all, at least what you people, you know, they have nematophores. We quantified what actually is the volume of nematophores. Yeah? So, given a TLS, you can actually measure perhaps quarter hectare or even 1 hectare, right? But it takes a lot of processing. How we will upscale it? For upscaling, what we have done is we have used the aerial data. From aircraft, you can run the radar. The point is the aircraft radar operates on a small footprint scale. Here you can see each stem, but once you are on top, you will see the canopy. You will not really see the stem. More importantly, the number of radar returns per square meter will only be 6 to 20. Here per meter, the number of returns are in thousands, right? So you require a different method. This is a very large international group. I am also one of the co-author because in NRSC did aerial surveys radar over 3 sites in India, and these are total 11 sites. And then one of my colleagues, Suraj Rodda, this is part of his PhD. So what he has done is from the aerial radar, looking at the canopy volume and height as a together, he has tried to create the allometric equation, mean height and above. So canopy volume and radar, and develop allometric equation purely from aerial radar data. Then what has been done is from aerial radar using 20 meter and 1 hectare, we have created open reference maps of aerial measurement and put it in the scientific literature. if anybody is developing a biomass assessment tool, please you can use this as a reference data. The uncertainty and the CV of various sites in our environment is listed. Now, this is the work which I was explaining. Tripura by 1990 had less than 5,000 hectares. 2020, it had 105,000 hectares. By active policy, the government encouraged many people to move from shifting cultivation as well as who were on the fringe to really settle down and take up the rubber. So as a result of it, we used 25 years of satellite data, not only map the growth of the rubber tree, but using in which particular year the tree was established, we created a age cluster. Now, from the ground measurement, you can plot age versus biomass, a high, medium, low, depending upon the soil quality. And then we tried to use this to create a age-based biomass mapping. If you don't have the type of resources like aerial photograph. Now, this is very interesting. We did a meta-analysis of all India's published biomass, and we used, global BCCI European project, the amount of carbon they have made. Happily, they make carbon biomass there. But unfortunately, none of the Indian data is made available spatially, and they also don't use it. So, the pitfall of the database thing is the type of data and the level of data you send, the answer will come up. So if you send up data minus India, you will get map may be very good for Europe or South America and Brazil. You are unlikely. So this is where we show that whether we take 1 hectare plot, whether we take 0.1 hectare plot, these are different plot sizes. All and depending upon what level of need is there. So they heavily underestimate our biomass. I showed to you a diagram of transition. This work was done by my PhD student, Abha. So what she did is she only divided India into 5 zones, right? And then used all the data and tried to do a bookkeeping model for net annual carbon flux. What you interestingly see is after 1980, the flux, that is the Supreme Court order that there will be no more tree cutting. So the policies can very strongly change. But unfortunately, at that time, 2002-3, when she was doing PhD, we didn't have access of so much open data. You could only aggregate and work with numbers and tables and model, but not really spatially the way I showed you. SOC is a big challenge. First is you don't see SOC, you can't take everywhere, and it is highly variable, right? And it changes. Now, what we had in India is a very big compilation by soil order and a V number and multiply. This is our soil pool. Somehow we were not really happy with it. So we started working on 3 things. One is we started working on the additionally forest and soil, which was not there. Second, we started working on a digital soil mapping and SOC estimation, which is linked to forest and tree growth through CO2 model. Then I'll also show you that we could upscale it to whole India, the DASA model for biomass productivity and whether SOC. This still is a part of work in progress, but I will just, I think you're all familiar with the points which are written here. Many of you are in soil science. So these are the numbers, right? I use Bhattacharya's table. There are, I think Bhattacharya has a couple of them, and some more of Professor Venkateshwarlu also has. So what we did was, we did with collaborator at 2,000 points, the soil sampling, and all were actually SOC was done by the not by the walk-leg method, but by the dry observation through CHL analyzer. Because we have also shown that if you take same sample and do walk-leg and the CHL analyzer, depending upon the clay and other parameter, you can have 8 to 15%. All right, so this is what we did. And then we combined maps of land cover, temperature, LDBI, depth, geology, so many things, temperatures. And then we do 30-70, 30% for validation through random forest. And then this map we published in, I think, 2016 in Geoderma. This is a 250-meter, India's first combined soil inorganic carbon and soil organic carbon data set. And currently, I have a PhD student who is working to convert this static map into a multi-year map with more defined features, right? So this at 5, so you can see 22 petagram per 1 meter depth SOC and 12.8 petagram of the soil inorganic carbon, right? So similarly now, as I said, this is some of the recent work which my PhD student is doing, state level is trying to do, so that you have a better control, better fit. Because that was only a national fit. Now he has started doing something else. If you have samples now, but you have accurate land use, climate, and so many things, what you do is you do space for time. By 30, 50-year-old satellite data, you only change the land cover. Then you can take the climate of that time. The model you can develop with the current data. By substituting the input layers, you can then try to make the map for 2 different periods. This is a very accepted method. So he actually not only did the forest, he also separated rubbers, coconut, and other trees, right? And created a part. Right. So what he found was basically that the total amount has changed by less than 2%, but the pockets where the carbon was lost and carbon gain could spatially be disaggregated. That is what we are looking at in the final run, right? So there is another challenge that we have seen now carbon, we have seen now vegetation. How do you measure flux? Photosynthesis, you can't, you can't do a photosynthesis of leaf, you have to do a canopy without disturbing it. So that you have to do is what's called an eddy covariance system. We established many eddy covariance systems in the country, forest and crop. So this is Betul. Betul is the highest quality teak in India. Yelapur is also Sirsi. So what we have established a tower here. So it will actually, depending upon the wind, have a footprint, and then it actually measures carbon dioxide through eddies at a rate of 20 hertz. Right, so 20 times per second. Then we aggregate over 15 minutes. Then we model the gaps based on the radiation, right, and vapor pressure deficit. Then you create curves. So then through multi-year, then you can say what is the net carbon accumulated. In fact, it also very clearly says that the GPP, while it is like 33 tons, the carbon which is actually accumulated is 5. So less than a sixth, right? We have data from multiple towers. This is in Sundarban. We have, because here you won't see seasonality and the numbers are consistent across the years. This is our group, NRSC group did. Very recently, we used satellite data and our IRI. Now, of course, now there's the what's called the Asia Institute, so international CGIAR group now. Pramod Agarwal, 19 years to compute the GPP by saying APAR and LUE, but we recalibrated it by actual yield harvest. So we did finally this block is optimal. See, because if you have a biomass and you use static harvest index, but across the year, across the district, and the variety change, and across that season, it will never be constant. But from outside, so what was done was a multi-parameter optimization within the system to reduce the biases from the plane satellite GPP and the measured. It was carried out, aggregated at district level. And then we created seasonal total GPP for separately for Kharif. This is a map. This data set is also put in open. So anybody can download it if you want to do. You can do further science with it. These are our results of the entire country using CASA. This is for our 25 years. This is one of the earlier work we did. So we show that net accumulation can go high and low depending upon drought year and land temperature. So interannual and spatial modeling is important. Then from NPT, we try to run a total biosphere model, right? And then compute the SOC. This is at 2 minutes for every grid, looked at trend. But since we also had the SOC map for one time, what we had done by machine learning, we tried to compare. We try to compare there will be very large variation because many parameters local are not. When you run a simulation with a parameterization, it is optimized for all. But there would be local variation unless you bring in, it will not come. So I would say it is reasonably okay for the first good. So similarly, the biggest problem for the soil organic carbon is root depth, litter fall, right? Is one of the important input for carbon forests. And then you can have any type of model. You can have a century type of a model, broad sea type of a model. So what we tried to do was, since we had about 137 litter fall observations in the Himalayas, Uttarakhand, etc., we tried to create a machine learning model of litter fall per hectare, so that the SOC can be better model. We haven't yet got down to the level of SOC, but litter fall reasonable production you can do. You can also use satellite data to monitor the active fire every day. And then, depending upon the vegetation and fire intensity, you can approximate how much carbon you have. This is again the one from the NRSC. It's a 1 year work. It's a huge data set, which we modeled. This work continues to be done. And anyway, November is coming. There will be residue burning and there will be air quality issue and a lot of newspaper and hamla will come. So, right? So this is the burnt area, how much it varies across the year. So you can say tree line variation is there. And the number of fire counts in Haryana. Some people are saying they have decreased, but the air quality did not increase. Many people are saying people found out that satellite is being used, so you burn after the satellite pass. I don't know. Because I go on hearing things, so I just unless I have worked myself. Now you come to the final question. Satellite measured atmosphere. Satellite had spatial layer, right? And you also had the fluxes. So what is the net carbon exchange impact? So there is something called the advantage of CO2 is it's not like ozone. It doesn't have any photochemistry. So it's a gas which can only get transpirated. So if you can merge all your spatial, ocean layer, etc. So if you want to from atmosphere, I was explaining the bottom up and top down. Top down is atmospheric CO2, but atmospheric CO2 is also moving, right? Due to wind. So how do you solve it? So you must have a atmospheric transport plan. So here what we tried to do was, we tried to use a geoscam model. We had the many layers of CO2. We had the Indian layers of terrestrial exchange, ocean exchange, global data sets or atmospheric are there. And then we tried to run a model and then see what is the India's net components. So this is the one of our result. So here what happens, you cannot do for very small region, you have to do over larger regions. So we took the peninsular India and the other India, terrestrial and ocean are separate. This was done. We are using geoscale model and we are validating it with satellite retrieval and the institute observations at Betul, Kerkrama and Sundarban. I showed you the cluster one. These are the vertical distribution. So what it comes out, the net land uptake minus 150 teragram. It comes for the north grid and 60 teragram, so 210. You saw the number 202. So we are reasonable. See, in this type of research, you should have same order first, then plus minus 20%, because so many uncertainties are carried over. So we think those numbers have a merit because we're totally independent technique. By totally independent size, you actually come at similar numbers. So once we have done this, what actually is changing? Very exciting things are happening. These are the set of satellites which actually measure atmospheric CO2. Unfortunately, the GeoCar in 2022, NASA decided to abandon the project, cancel it. It was not showing the technical competence. So now we have more and more the carbon dioxide sensor. The best part is private companies have moved into. The GHG SAT constellation is by a private, so ghgsat.com I have given. They have already launched 11 satellites. Each of the satellites, they are given very good names, Claire, Iris, Hugo, Duca, very diverse. They are small CubeSats, very small satellite. They are not big, all the solar panels are there. They have a spectrometer. The field of view is also 12 by 12 kilometer. But they have a spatial resolution of 25 meter. They can measure methane and the CO2. So what now they can do is, they can detect a industry plume, right? But now the challenge is, when you see an industry plume, you have instant static number. You should have a model of atmospheric surface wind field to convert it into dispersion, and that gives you flux. So measurement, they are saying, for oil, gas, environment, waste, agriculture, coal mining, government and regulator, the satellite weighs only 15 kg. And private companies are doing. You can go to their website. And so this is something very exciting. It will not scale up to the globe, but at each chimney level, you can even find out let us say, a coal electricity plant, how much it is consuming, how much CO2 is coming. You can have various type of. This is how they look like. So these are not large area, but global number, you can see the emission, which they have now given. Carbon dioxide, 635 plus minus 89 tons per hour. This is by looking at the plume, the concentration, and by having a numerical model, local weather model, which has an atmospheric transport derived from it. So methane also you can do. This is something more, and now more and more companies are coming. The second one is the biomass. So biomass is also becoming important. These are the sensors which went in past. For the passive microwave, you either use C or L. You remain, you can't really do the entire. But if you look at the microwave active, all bands from X, C, L, K, KU, all have been used So what recently has happened are two. The July, the NASA ISRO launched NISR. NISR is, I think, one of the world's costliest Earth observation satellite. Total budget around $1.3 billion. So what they have? They have a new technology. They have a 12-meter unfurlable antenna. It's like our chata. It goes in space and it opens and creates this. So L band is by JPL, S band by ISRO, launched by ISRO. The satellite is also made by ISRO, right? So not only they have very high technology electronic component, it also has a totally novel concept of what is called sweep SAR. So in sweep SAR, what you do is at almost 12-meter resolution, you use this transmitter TX. All transmitters are on. They go and then they come to the flight path the entire. And you have very high churn rate. So what you do is you are sending signal. Each one is traveling at the speed of light. And parallelly, what you do is switch on and off to receive signal. So as it is moving, the receive signals are also done thousands of times, and then multiple repeats are mathematically modeled and removed. So this sweep SAR gives you all polarimetry. It means vertical transmit, vertical receive, vertical transmit, horizontal receive, horizontal transfer, horizontal receive, full polarimetry you actually do. Something which has not been done till now. Either you have small polarimetry or data full polarimetry. Plus it has a huge control, right? Interferometry. The second important thing which has happened more recently, this was launched in April 25. This is a P band. First time P band SAR has been launched by ESA. It had been going on for past 15 years. The satellite itself is called biomass. So let me explain to you. If you have an X band, your wavelength is 3 centimeter. So you will only see these variations, roughness, right? You will never go below the canopy. At 6 centimeter, sum up between the leaves you will see, and you will get a canopy. L band, which is more used, which is in ALOS L and what we also use from the Japanese satellite, it will go within canopy and also strike some of the things and then. But P, what will happen is a 70 centimeter wavelength. Leaves actually, it is transparent to leaves. It will only touch branches and stem. So 435 megahertz, 70 centimeter wavelength, it will penetrate the leaves and it will give you stem only. Not only that, here the modeling mechanism is entirely different. If you have a picture, you can spatially map. So all our work was spatial mapping of vegetation, soil, tree. And for some of the bricks, you have the heights also, right? So and in microwave, you can do height by interferometry. But the biomass with P, it actually has a tomosar. What it does is, because from multiple locations, through that, it will create a radius height, similar to you go to hospital to get yourself scanned. You whole body goes inside, and you get multiple layers, they create fusion, right? MRI. Actually, yes. So actually, the P band biomass is a tomographic SAR at multiple height. You would really get. So I think that brings me to the end. Exciting thing which are happening. Thank you very much. Sorry for small hiccups and delaying you. But if there are some questions, I would be most happy to respond.
Thank you, sir. So thank you for the insightful presentation. And I now invite Dr. Indira to bring back the Q&A session.
Okay.
I know there are several questions I've seen in the chat box. So please sum up it to few and then we can share it with the sir so that he can give the complete details about it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Virupaksha sir. Thank you, Dadhwal sir, for your enlightenment on remote sensing of carbon cycle. We have received several questions, sir, in the chat box. The first question is from Dr. Senthil Kumar. He has asked about how to build up carbon on coastal saline soils. Does remote sensing saline soils?
Coastal
Saline soils. Does remote sensing methodologies have role in it? Like that, yes.
So you have three roles. One, the coastal environment is actually very dynamic in the sense of the time and at what level you are. You anyway have to do sampling. The third important point is you can use directly the satellite data for some conductivity, etc., SAR and NO data. So you can then combine multiple point observation and this spatial data set to really if the soil even under moisture, organic matter changes soil color, right? That also becomes visible. And if some of the mangroves, etc., come, because over time it changes, that mangrove backing can also be. So in a not single parameter, in a multiple parameter, you should be able to monitor the carbon, coastal carbon also. But flats, wetland and mangroves.
Okay, sir. The next question is, nowadays a trend has started like sea farming or growing seaweeds or mosses, which absorb more of carbon dioxide from the environment. Can you give some insights on this, sir?
Yeah, so we didn't go into ocean, not even the coast, but there are these optical data. You can actually do seaweed, you can do the coral reef mapping, you can use the satellite data to do the coral reef bleach. I am not sure about the productivity because phytoplankton we can do the phytoplankton concentration and the productivity, but the area under the reef and its aggregate chlorophyll as a from ocean color sensor, which have very let us say high radiometric quality and narrow band. That is possible.
Okay, sir. Sir, next question is about technical question, sir. What is the scale of FSI maps for forest cover maps, especially
FSI map. So FSI map done at 1:50.
Okay, sir.
And they use three data, which are the spatial resolution 2.5.
Okay, sir. And another question is regarding machine learning, sir. Utilization of machine learning in remote sensing. How machine learning and data fusion techniques, like integrating optical, radar, lidar sensors, enhance the carbon cycle monitoring under the conditions of cloud cover, seasonal variability, and land use change. Sir.
Yeah. So three questions. One is
Yeah.
data fusion. So data fusion, you can use optical and SAR and really create a non-cloud effective. But when you do biomass, you do an annual integration. You require within the year one cloud-free picture at an appropriate phenomenology time, right? Then comes the third question of this data machine learning. Now, machine learning requires a training data. It means at those points you should measure. Now, it is the accuracy of the measurement, two, adequacy of sample point to cover the entire range, right? And third, you should use the L-band, optical, VI, the geology, soil order, temperature, rainfall, couple past also. Then machine learning will do. What we have found is most of the forestry people are using 0.1 hectare sample. The CV at 0.1 is above 60%. Those values are very uncertain. We suggest somewhere between 0.5 to 1 hectare, which brings the CV to 20% and is a better used Because if your X and Y, if your X itself has so much uncertainty, your model can't do this. This is the advice.
Okay, sir. Those are the questions we received, sir. And I request the participants present physically here.
Yeah,
If they have any questions, they can ask.
So,
Yes.
for biomass estimation, that is P band, L band, all these things will be given, but it is above the ground biomass.
Yeah.
But roots will be there below. the
So
ground
root
also.
for what you have to do is, up to now, most of the ecologists have used constant numbers. But now slowly, if you go to new phytologists and other, depending upon the type and the physiological cycle, people are differentiating between fine root and coarse root. Within that, depending upon the soil structure, if you have a soil map independent, whether there is a stony layer, what type of thing is there, how much bulk density, etc. is there. So you can do model for root in density and root depth. All shrubs and grassland are very high, long root depth, right? But the biomass shrub can be only 30%, 70%. So it is by better mapping, a better understanding of the soil root interaction. And third, developing species or a community wise coefficient. Otherwise, you can in the literature see 0.18 of the above biomass. That doesn't work. So that is why in our case, we have totally refrained from making from AGP to total, unless we have ourselves more certain of the below ground biomass modeling, featuring its control, you would not venture into it.
The next chairman. So we are measuring the crop canopy or any parameters through the remote sensors.
Yes.
And when we go to the ground level and also if we measure, what would be the sensation of variation?
Okay, so what you are talking is one, whether a point represents a spatial aggregation. Whatever, if I take a LI, leak or LAI meter or etc. If I keep below canopy, that circle where it measures may have only 50 centimeter diameter, right? Was 1 meter high. Now the satellite is at least 20 by 20 meter. Now if I stand in the field, I see variability. So generally the recommendation is you have more than 5 sample randomly or in a very clear design and aggregate. At that level you relate to satellite. Because at no place a point measurement can match with the fact. Same way, if you have any time series and you take a 5-year running average, you can't say this average is the one every year it came the values on. So it is due to the high frequency local variation, not captured by a small aperture sensor. If you have more numbers, you will aggregate turn out more and more. Finally, the central limit theorem applies. If you can get 20, I think your mean should be very, very close. But that is not it.
Sir, can you use these models for carbon trading?
No, the issue with the carbon trading is these are large area aggregated model. So what, and then you don't have to spend to do over large area. Your carbon trading is over 20 hectare, 50 hectare. It is better to use proximal remote sensing, like photogrammetry, TNS, a drone, and manage. The principle remains the same, but the type of sensor what we use for carbon trading, because it is project side, it should be totally. This is for scaling up regional and national and global. Carbon trading is some 30 hectares of whatever it is. You draw some this measure.
But you can apply, sir.
Yeah.
I'm Dr. Kumum.
Yes, yes.
In Fasal Bima Yojana, we used to go for crop cutting insurance. It delays almost for 1.5 to 2 years. But there was a group, I think, whether we can assess through remote sensing of
Yeah, yeah. I said that
you been standardized.
2017 to 21. No, we didn't standardize. I'll explain the philosophy. What we said was, we opened it to government institutions and private players to propose. So ICRISAT came, Niruti from Hyderabad came, lot of even this Center for Food Policy Institute came, SAP and NRSC also came, other 5 parties also came. So each were divided into 3. One, are you doing ground-based machine learning, photography-based method, or you are using drone? Third, you are using satellite and simulation model. So each one, if you can deliver number at a gram panchayat level, then you measure there and show the consistency. So the method, like if you really see the latest document, the method is not prescribed. The scale and use of technology is prescribed.
Just one more extent. Here, before coming to Gram Panchayat level, we are following block. UP was following, then Haryana was half block. But at least to that level, we can.
No, the point is their block has never more than 40 years. And here you are mapping station. So the two are not really connected. If you block you at say 100, 150, then you do IISc. Very simple, I'll explain to you. You go back to Madhavan's paper and 5 by 5 meter or 10 by 10 meter complete. The jute, what he did in 1930s, it was to give the mean yield of jute in the one district of West Bengal. So even that 5 meter cannot denote the field average. But statistically sampling, that very number are average for the district. So this week, sometime we try to ignore.
You mentioned about IR thermal temperature. That indicates the temperature of leaf, which is the districts. Can that is window wide enough to use it to schedule the irrigation?
The whole issue is for scheduling irrigation. If you can bring to field scale, because thermal have 100 meter type of. So now I didn't cover. There will be in 2 years a satellite called Krishna, which will have 50 meter. So for you can understand, for getting correct temperature, you need thermal emissivity. When you have 2 channels, the emissivity is not properly estimated. In Krishna, there are 5 mid-IR band, which will allow you to compute thermal emissivity, and at 50 meter resolution, you will be able to compute the energy. But it is not large scale. We cover 50 by 50 so at targets. It is done by TNS France and Italy. That is, so you can look at Krishna, where if you just put ISRO Krishna,
Still, there are many number of questions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can have discussion here in the latest part.
Just like those start right and still receive the questions, you can mention them.
Yes, sir. It is already mentioned in the group. Yes, sir.
they can send you by email and
Break it down. There's still almost 150 participants online.
So,
Message
Sure, thank you.
So for the participants who are online, so the questions will be collected, summed up and sent to the speaker so that he will answer in detail. The same thing will be sent to you to the mail that we have collected during the registration. Yes, sir. Thank you. So I thank Dr. Linda Yogi and Dr. Vinay Kumar Dadhwal for answering the questions in detail. So now I invite Dr. Prithviraj L for vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Vinay Kumar Dadhwal, sir, Indira Gandhi Chair Professor, Environmental Science, School of Natural Sciences, Bangalore, for delivering such an insightful and engaging presentation on recent advances in remote sensing of terrestrial carbon cycle. Your expertise and knowledge have greatly enriched our understanding under the webinar series theme Digital Agriculture. Thank you, sir. Thanks. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, PS Bangalore, and Commissioner, Watershed Development Department, and our Special Officer, Center of Excellence in Watershed Management, for their unwavering support and encouragement which made this webinar possible. Thank you, sir. My deepest thanks to all the participants from various specializations who joined us today. Professors from the various departments, RA, SRFs from various departments, teaching and non-teaching staff. Your presence and active engagement have made this event a resounding success. Thank you, one and all. Then a special word of appreciation goes to the webinar organizing team at CoEWM for their meticulous efforts in planning and coordinating this enlightening series. Your hard work behind the scenes is appreciated. Thank you, the team. We would also like to applaud everyone who contributed directly or indirectly, and also the presence of our faculty members who are presented in this CoEWM to the smooth execution of this webinar. Thank you, sir. We hope this session has provided valuable insights and sparked meaningful discussions. We look forward to welcoming you to our future events. Thank you, one and all. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Prithviraj. So, thank you all to our speaker, dignitaries, and participants for your valuable presence and contributions. Please note that e-certificate will be shared to the registered email IDs within 3 working days. With this, we formally close today's webinar. We look forward to meet you again in our upcoming webinars. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.